Okay, let's do this. Hi, people. I'm Fernanda Oliveira. I'm from Brazil, São Paulo. And today I'm going to talk a little bit about creating brawlers or creating characters in general, but for Brawl. And touching a little bit and exploiting our inner child for our career. And I'm going to explain a little bit about this. But first, I want to take you all on this ride with me in my childhood. So this is a representation of me as a child, because I didn't have any better picture. So I was obsessed about cartoons, like literally obsessed. But this is nothing new, since everybody as a child is obsessed about cartoons. And I'm pretty sure that you all here was like that as well. And I always had this special taste for the ones that weren't supposed to be for my age, like cartoons that had something off about those characters, or they were hiding some kind of like dark joke, like Beavis and Butthead, for example, or like Tom and Jerry and fire guns and this kind of stuff. But I think that's pretty cool that back then they were always like sneaking these kind of jokes for kids. And yeah, this stuck with me. And growing older, this wasn't getting better. Like my taste, like my weird taste, just got worse and worse. And I started to get into heavier stuff like Daria. I don't know if you guys are familiar with a few of those things, but I was super obsessed about Adult Swim cartoons like Daria. Daria, by the way, is a spin-off for Beavis and Butthead. Amazing. Ren and Stimpy, one of my main references, Gorillas, Thank Girl, Mad Magazine, and so on. And I believe that during this phase, I was not shaping only like my weird taste, but also my creativity. I noticed that I was absorbing a lot of references and a lot of like what I found funny and why those things were funny and how they were kind of mocking the adult world in a way. And this was like shaping who I was as a teenager, so a pretty weird teenager, let's say that. And moving on, talking about references and the weird things that I was observing, here we're going to talk about Animaniacs. How many of you know Animaniacs? Or at least heard of that? Yeah, great. Do you remember that in this show, they had like different characters and different like tiny shows to kind of mock like different pop culture references or movies and stuff like that? And this show was created by Steven Spielberg, like just a random guy, not very important, and one of my favorite directors of all time. And what I love about that is that the main idea of Animaniacs was to twist like movies and pop culture and everything that was kind of like the adult world, but for kids. And he started to do that, starting with the Warner Brothers and imagining like the Warner Brothers as like this, later on, a trio of like cute creatures that I don't know if those are cats or rabbits or stuff like that, but I think it's a pretty cool way to imagine like a company, but for kids, and imagine the brothers as characters. So moving on, in this show we had the Good Feathers, and I don't know if you guys remember those 3 pigeons here. I was, again, obsessed by them. I just found hilarious how they had this kind of like the daily life of pigeons trying to survive on the street as a gang. And they had, it was Pistol, I forgot the other 2 names, but there was like the new guy, the one with the big smile, and he wanted to be part of this gang, and he was trying so hard to be accepted by the other 2 pigeons. So they have like little challenges, like small challenges that he had to do on the street so they could get accepted in this gang. And they also had like this big old pigeon over there that was some kind of godfather for the pigeons, and he's supposed to be the one who gave like the final blast for this other the newbie pigeon to be accepted in this group. And I just find hilarious how can imagine like pigeons as like this gang, like doing stuff on the streets, and how creative that was. Like I was obsessed as a kid. And I remember that later on, like watching The Goodfellas with my dad. Oi pai, você deve estar ouvindo em algum lugar. I was watching The Goodfellas, and then I started to notice like some similarities with John Pesci, Ray Liotta, and Robert De Niro. I noticed that those 3 pigeons, they were in fact those 3 guys, and the fat old pigeon was the Godfather itself. And when I realized that, my mind just exploded. I started to rewatch some older cartoons and try to look for those references and clues and try to understand like this magic behind like creating characters. And not only characters, but creating the world. And the cool thing is that I didn't felt that, oh, there's no magic anymore because he was copying the Goodfellas. I felt that was so cool that someone was translating like a lot of crazy, cool content for kids in a way that is safe and super interesting. And kids are nothing but curious about stuff, and when we are all obsessed, something that we have, of course, a lot of free time. Something that we do is like just spend hours on the internet looking for favorite albums, favorite artists, trying to search into the references. So to me, this was a moment that changed my life forever, and I was like, okay, now I have to consume everything that my idols are consuming. Like, I have to search on their trash and know everything that they know, and this was me. So for today, now that I hopefully brought like a little bit of your inner child back, and I hope that you guys are seated with them right now, or in contact with this inner child at least, I want to talk about 3 main things. And I think those things are not only about creating characters, but I think those things are super important in the creative process at all, like overall. And the first thing would be humor to help the creative process. The second thing would be the creative pillars. Those pillars are just a few ones that I try to have in mind, keep in mind when I'm creating brawlers for Brawl Stars, but also stuff that we ended up touching on daily basis, like developing skins, features, and so on. And if we had time, a little bit of this Draco tale. Almost no time to explain for sure, but I will try to explain a little bit about how was the process creating this brawler. So that's it. Moving on, we have humor and creativity. And this is about how your weird taste can get you pretty far. And to talk about that, I have to, please work. I have to get back a little bit and talk a little bit about my past. Like, I started doing illustration. My first job, in fact, was as a caricaturist. I used to hate the job itself, but I loved to draw, so it was good. And after a few years, like, I made great friends. I started to work in this advertisement agency. And there was a pretty interesting moment of my life because I could detach like the obsession about drawing and animation and characters, like my comfort zone, to move forward and think a bit more about like ideas, process, like meaning behind design. It was also during this time that I started my college in graphic design. So I think it was a very rich moment to understand a bit more about like this creative process of thinking behind anything, including characters. And after a few, like 5 to 6 years working advertising, I finally started to work with animation, and it was like the best moment. And I got super lucky to work with amazing artists and learn way more about like sharing ideas together, building words together. And I think this, like those 2 combinations, like those 2 like previous work that I got lucky to develop in a way, they got me here in a way, because I think that we usually struggle to understand that, not we as an artist, but sometimes people struggle to understand the power of ideas and the power behind like having fun and creating something that really connects with people. And I think a little bit of the advertisement like tricks to get into your brain, and the fun that I got from animation and discussing about references and ideas every day, this really made me understand what I would love to do and how I would like to have more impact on my next step. And moving forward, I decided to join the games industry. And I'm glad to say, I'm really happy to say that this has been like the best thing that I've ever done with my life, because I've never been so happy. I think the feeling that I was missing my whole life was to create something that it can feel alive and that can connect with like players or audience, with everybody in a deeper level, in a way. And just to give a special shout out here and talking again about connection, I remember that when I was doing my interview for Supercell, I had to chat with Paul Chambers. He's the OG creator of Brawl Stars. And I remember that my first interview, like our first connect, it's supposed to be only 30 minutes. And we ended up talking for almost 2 hours because we connected so much with a weird taste. Like, we started to talk about cartoons and like our favorite cartoons, characters, like the things that we love about games, the things that we hate about games. And I tend to bond with people through hate. Sometimes it's like, oh, what do you hate? Yeah, I hate that shit, man. It's so generic, blah, blah, blah. And he was like very intense, passionate guy. And I remember that was like magical. It's like, wow, that's so cool that we're going to work together, because I feel that this connection is so important, even more for this role. And I think that this was also like almost like a clue for the work that I had to develop after that, like after joining the team. So yeah, talking about weird taste and word building, since me and Paul, we kind of bond. Those two guys, I don't know if you're familiar with them, but if you don't know them, you probably know their characters. Let me just check the name again. This is Trey, Parker, and Matt Stone. Yeah, because I also forget the names, but I know the name of the characters. So this is an example about how your weird taste can get you this far. Like South Park, I think it's pretty famous for everybody. And this is basically two guys having fun, creating stories, and trying to do stuff in a super short time, and relying on their crazy ideas and humor. And this sounds silly, but we are actually talking about a super important and influential IP that we had for animation. And just to deep dive a little bit more about like humor, creativity, and this process, like in South Park, they had this, not a theory, but a few tools that they call the writer's room. This wasn't created in South Park itself. It's kind of borrowing stuff from improv classes, but also like this magic that happens when a bunch of crazy people or creative people get together and they have to write a script. They have to come up with ideas, so how they can work together. And they usually, in improv in South Park, they had a super short time to come up with ideas. So they couldn't afford like try and test new stuff all the time, so they have to rely on 3 concepts to kind of increase like their timing and to not, I don't know, get lost in the process. So a few of those concepts are like shared vision. So it was a small group of writers, so they have to share the same vision. They have to understand what is this world about, who are those characters, and are we aligned in the same project? Like, this is something that we all believe, that it has to be this way. So this is like essential to start to pitch any kind of ideas. You have to be sure that everybody in your team, in your writer's room, are aligned. The second thing would be character-driven story. This is also like super important. Like, they have to know the characters, because the humor that they were creating was not just about the absurdity of those ideas, but how those characters would react to those situations. So that's why it's so important to pitch a character that, even with some rules and limitations, like when you put this guy in different situations, how can this character break the expectations and bring something funny into that? So by knowing the character, they could also test another concept called like yes and every time that they had to propose a new idea. So, for example, when they have to pitch an idea, okay, Cartman has to buy, I don't know, grapes in the supermarket, but then he goes there and there's like a dog dying in front of the supermarket. Yes, and so they can trust each other with their humor, and they know that their partner will come up with something crazier and funnier, that it's aligned with this character, aligned with what their audience likes, and it will be funny. Like, we'll make everybody in the room laugh. And this is no joke. This is nothing like that we should take for guaranteed. Like, if you have people really aligned and building up humor based on ideas, they are actually being creative, but not knowing, because they're just having fun. And talking about audience, this is another thing that is super important. Like, they were truly connected with their audience. Like, after they released the first season, if I'm not mistaken, and they get all the feedback about why is this show like a huge success. It's about the craziness, it's about being edgy, like making fun of pop culture. It was usually relying on like some crazy events from the past month, so they don't have much time to iterate or like study the pop culture, I don't know, world to try something else. So they have to rely on what was the last trend, what was the last scandal, what is the last crazy celebrity that we have, and how can we make jokes or make fun with that. So knowing their audience was also allowing them to bring what they were expecting. So this is super important as well to pitch those episodes. And they had a pretty interesting documentary called like 6 to 5 Days to Live or to show that they can explore a little bit more of that. And I also believe that this short time aligned with trust, the right group of people, and this chemistry like that humor can create with people was also allowing them to be more creative and to bring more ideas and to ended up with like a great show. So yeah, creativity, like quoting here our friend John Cleese, creativity is not the possession of some special talent, it's about the willingness to play. And remember guys, we are here making games to play. And it's pretty weird when you go to like a meeting room or like when you have to discuss game ideas and so on. And for a brief moment, people kind of forget that they have to do something that they have to like it, right? They have to enjoy. Like, what is the fun about that? Like, we're trying to bring more players. We're trying to better retention. Yeah, this is all great. But if we are starting with like a pretty sad and boring meeting room when people should be creative, should be putting like their best ideas on the table, having fun while creating, like during play tests, having fun, like finding interesting, like genuinely interesting what they are doing. Like, how can we actually expect our players to come back to our game? So this is no bullshit. And here at Brawl, this is how we try to do it, not only for characters, but for everything. And now I can touch a little bit on the Brawl creative pillars. This is kind of the recipe to create Brawlers, not only Brawlers, but the world, their environments, and fun at Brawl Stars. And I have a bigger list, but just to give an idea about the main direction for this IP based on everything that I learned in these 3 years already working with this, and like the daily basis experience, like the things that I noticed that can create like interesting characters. Also the ideas that I brought to the team that really got them excited. And I think like this repetition of rules, like the discipline into making like every 2 months a new update and finding what is working and how to keep doing the right things, and the things that are not working, let's not do this anymore. So I think it's like a set of rules or pillars that are kind of guiding me in a way to create characters and hopefully inspiring the rest of the team. So let's go. If you start with a character, you probably will end up with good drawings. Like this quote from Chuck Jones, my God, my master. It's about a character. It's basically a person, like a character, that's it. It's a person, so it has complexity, it has a backstory, it has way more than what we are showing. Like, it's not just a drawing. And if, let me just get something here. If you consider that when you're creating one, you probably will end up with good drawings, but not only that, you probably will end up with a great character. So if you really take the process of creating characters, almost like an actor, when they have to literally create their own character, like they have to think about their motivation, to think about how they speak, why they're making those decisions, their backstory, what, like sometimes the cultural background, like all those things are as important when you're creating a character. It doesn't matter if it's for a game, for a comic, for a book. even more nowadays that everything that we are creating, we are kind of aiming to, okay, if we have to make a movie about Brawl, how this is going to be like. If we have to explain a little bit more about a trio dynamic, how can we dive into that? So something that I always try to do when I'm creating a Brawler is that it's not only like a character that will throw random stuff in game, like, who is this guy? Like, why is exciting? Like, people will get interested about them, like, what is the connection? What are the fanfics that our players will write about this trio or about this character? And I think this is super important. And this was one of the lessons that I got from Chuck, the greatest. And it's absolutely true. And now, diving a little bit on those concepts, we have humor. I'm talking a lot about humor because I'm nervous, and every time that you guys laugh, it's like I can breathe. So if you want to pretend that this is fun, just laugh. But no, for real, humor creates connection. And again, this is not me talking. This is like pure chemistry in our body. Humor ignites our brain, creating constant connections and dopamine. It's almost the same mechanism that we have when we are like learning stuff, like connecting dots, like assessing our memories and stuff like that. So an open space, it also creates an open space for collaboration, inspiration, connection during the creative process. I had a lot of experience with my colleagues from other companies when we had to, I don't know, just kind of bully each other or joke around when we didn't have any job to do. And like later on, I was realizing that during those playful times, we were actually creating like some content for those projects without noticing. So to me, this is the preciosity about humor. Like, if you trick your brain into having fun, like bringing ideas just because you're, I don't know, are interested about that, into twisting something that your colleague is talking, you're actually exercising the creativity in your brain. And that's why, to me, it's so important to have like a playful environment. This is not only to, I don't know, have a happier life, because you have to go there every day and do your job, but this is also good for your brain. So to me, it's like, we have to have a space like that. And talking about characters, another thing that I like to connect with humor and characters is that, to me, whenever I have an idea about a Brawler, I try to explain almost as a joke. Like, I have a setup, so they're going to have some expectations about this character, and then I twist into something else, exactly like a joke. Like, I remember the last character that we did, just because it's fresh in my mind, is Shade. He's supposed to be a ghost, because we were working with this mechanic. The base mechanic was a ghost. But I was thinking, okay, in Brawl, we don't have magic. We cannot rely on any fantasy in that sense. So how can I come up with a ghost that is not actually a ghost? And I was thinking about the classic pile of clothes that we all have, like in a corner, in a room. And during the night, we usually look twice at that shit, and we think that, oh, maybe this is like a creature, like maybe it has eyes. And it's like common sense that the pile of clothes during the night gets creepier and give us like chills or stuff like that. I was like, damn, we can transform like a pile of clothes in some type of ghost, because there's like the creepy vibe there. And we can work around like with shape, like a hoodie, and put some glasses on, like a hat, and come up with this like too cute for Brawl, but also like looking like a ghost. We can play along with that. And I remember that I put this meme of a pile of clothes and a ghost, and everybody on the team laughed, right, guys? And to me, it was like, yes, great, I'm on the right direction. I remember even Gonzalo, he was telling his kid about this idea, and his kid was already like kind of doing cosplay with the hoodie. And I was like, ah, that's so good, man, I love it, because kids, they have to represent the Brawlers, like they have to get the idea as well. And to me, like that's a great, oops, sorry, dry mouth. To me, this is like a great sign that I'm at least thinking on the right direction, and people are thinking about more ideas when they know something about the character. And this has like a real influence on mechanics, on how we can create the animation for those characters, how like people, like how we can write the stories about those characters. And like just like a few, I don't know, concepts about the character, they can I don't know, create so much more when people are really passionate, invested, or at least curious about that character. So humor is always like my first sparkle when I'm creating a character. The second thing is nostalgia. Nostalgia to me on Brawl, it's more like an inspiration. Like, in creativity is collaborative. Creativity is collaboration in a nutshell. So we can never create anything from scratch. We always have to rely on our references, inspiration, and so on. And to me, it's really magical when we can create like a unique character that somehow it feels familiar because of the reference, but it doesn't feel like a copy, like I was saying with the good feathers. Like, it's not Ray Liotta, it's a pigeon. And that's why it's brilliant. So I like to do that when I'm creating characters as well. I think, okay, for example, for Gray, we had this Brawlywood area that is supposed to almost be like this tribute for Hollywood, golden era, and like silent movies and so on. I was like, oh, I love Buster Keaton. Like, we can do something with Buster Keaton what would be more interesting about having a character like black and white, that it's like this silent actor, a little bit weird, that kind of has a beef with Lola, the second Brawler, is that we can actually use a lot of those physical gags that Buster Keaton used in his movies as game mechanics. So when I thought about that, I was like, damn, now we have something. And then I start to write about his chemistry with Lola, about how we had this idea about how to introduce a Brawler, like actually doing an animation, like silent animation, where he starts to do like circles, where he can kind of like travel as a portal and play along with Lola. We can show a little bit of his skills. We can introduce the character, showing a little bit about the reference for this character, and adding so much more depth than just saying, like, this character has portals, which will be boring. So to me, that's why it's so important, the references, like, but not references alone. We always have to think about, okay, how can we use this reference in a Brawl way when we are creating a character? It's never like copying one-to-one. It's always like, okay, but in Brawl, we usually will approach this in this way, and so on. Also, briefly, we have Maisie, Buster, and Fang, that trio over there. They represent, like, they're part of the Turbo Theater. And this trio, they work in a movie theater. And they're fascinated about action movies. And they are basically a representation of, like, my favorite action movie heroes. Like Maisie, it's like a little bit of Sarah Connor with Ellen Ripley. Buster is this Sylvester Stallone, Schwarzenegger mix of guy. I was planning him to hold this projector, like a gun. And Fang is basic Bruce Lee. And I was thinking, okay, how can those guys get inspired by those movies and be brawlers and also like have some skills related to that, but working in a movie theater, what kind of stories they can bring together and so on. And it was really interesting because Fang was the first character, but just thinking about the reference, I could create all the characters at once. And to me, this is another like really cool sign when I have to create the first brawler, that the other two, they just show up in my brain. So I feel like, okay, this is a good theme. I have enough content. I can move forward. Diversity. Now, this topic is something that we can hear a lot of people talking about. And everybody says, oh, diversity is great, blah, blah, blah. We have to be more, I don't know, we have to bring more diversity. But to me, it's like every character, every cultural background for a character is super important, but not only that. To me, true diversity is like being able to be more playful with every and all characteristics that we have for a character. Like, diversity is super powerful, but to me, we really have to use with intention. You cannot just, okay, we need a black character, or okay, we need like a blind character. No, it's not like that. Like, on Brawl, I try to apply the same rules that I have for all. I try to apply the same rules that I have for Brawlers, about their background, their traumas, who they are, what they like, what they hate. I have to put everything together and use the same logic of twisting that thing. And to me, like, when this is really connected with who they are and those personality traits and in all levels, if this can tell a little bit more about those brawlers, then I know that I'm using like any, I don't know how to say that. I don't know. I know that I'm going in a good direction. Anyway, and a good example of that is Angelo. Angelo is this guy, like, he's a half Cupid, half human, half fly. And he was completely inspired. Thanks, Nelly. He was completely inspired by Jeff Bloom, The Fly, amazing movie, and Hockey Horror Picture Show. And the idea here is that, okay, we need a Cupid for the love swamp. Love swamp is a different area as well. It's a little bit twisting love into something creepy. And I was like, okay, we have to come up with something that it's relatable to love, but on a brawl way, so have to be a little bit fucked up, a little bit crazy and fun. And I was thinking, okay, let's make like this guy dressed as a Cupid. He's like playing along with on the love swamp. He works there. But one day he fell on the swamp, and then he became like this hybrid creature. So right now, he's not full human and not full fly. But since he's so confident and so amazing, he just don't care about being something in between. And to me, it was like, man, it's perfect. It sounds like Brawl. It resonates with his personality because he's also like a kind of fucked up Cupid. Instead of like making people fall in love when he throw his, I don't know, lances. When he throw that, instead of making people fall in love, in fact, he has those little mosquitoes that they will spread gossip all around and, I don't know, make people fall in love for the wrong person. So it's everything a little bit twisted. And when I was creating him, I was like, damn, it would be so cool to have like a non-binary character that actually his personality and his looks resonate with his origin story. And to me, that felt truth. Like, now I'm creating everything together. It's not only about bringing diversity. I have to have like a real intention. Like, it has to be on his DNA, his cultural background, who he is, how he wants to identify, and so on. So, Angelo, it's one of my favorites. And next slide. Iconic simplicity. So this one, only Spike, because Spike is perfect. It's just like, thanks, Paul. Less is more, and I truly believe in that. And quoting again Chuck Jones, let me see if I can read here. The whole essence of good drawing and good thinking is to work a subject down to the simplest form possible and still have it believable for what it's meant to be. I think this is great because it's a real challenge when you are creating a character and you have like so many ideas in your brain, but you cannot just throw everything on top of that character. Like, you really have to separate, okay, this is important for this character, like this will make like an interesting shape language, like we can play along with this design for skins. Like, there's so many rules that you kind of have to check, like those boxes that you have to check when you're creating a character, and you have to still look at this character and kind of understand, okay, the skill, who is this guy, what he's gonna do, and what is his personality. So the challenge and the trick to do that is less is more, because then you have to really think about, okay, this character is about to be cute and creepy. So I'm gonna do something that is cute, a little bit like dubious, like a cactus. A cactus is not really a cute thing, at the same time that it is, because I think cactus are cute. And he always gonna have like this smile in his face, like this dark hole of eyes and mouth, smiling all the time. Like, it's funny because kids find Spikey pretty creepy and cute at the same time. And there's nothing much there. It's just this, just Spike smiling. And we have that. So you don't have to add like, I'm kind of against those designs that you have to put like, I don't know, 100 props and stuff hanging to tell the whole story of this character. To me, it's like, no, man, please. Like, what is this character? You need to pick one thing and go with that thing. I think this is really, really, it's hard to do it, but I prefer characters that try to follow that rule. And I was about to say something else. Oh, another good thing on Brawl, and I love the style, I was always passionate about the style, is this toy-like vibe that we got. I think this is really, really important for customization. Like, if you guys know, of course you guys know, toy art. One of the coolest things about toy art is that once you start to collecting them or getting into this thing, you notice like this desire about customize them. You just get, your brain just gets tricked into imagine those characters in different ways. And I think also the simplicity, like this iconic and minimalist design that we try to keep it on Brawl, it's also something that kind of foster like our players' imagination for skins. And it's super fun when we can realize, when we even challenge the concept artists that work with us in this thing about, okay, you have to think about what is the main thing of Edgar, what is the main thing on Mortis, and this you can play along with that. And don't erase the character, ever, because this is the main thing. This is what's gonna make the skin, even being a bit crazier, we can still see the character there. And it's funny to see that and Mateus is here, you can probably confirm that, the coolest ideas are usually the simple, like the simplest skins, because they cannot change much, but then they have way more ideas. And I was like, damn, that's something pretty interesting. Like, it's easy for them to miss the point when they start to add a lot of stuff, but when they have to keep it simple, it's usually like genius ideas. It's super cool. And timeless tributes, getting there. So this is an important topic for me, since I'm just here today because I was obsessed about cartoons and I got crazy when I saw Animaniacs, is that we have to create with intention as well, and we have to keep in mind what is the main thing that we are trying, like, what are the legacy that we are trying to leave behind when we are creating something? It doesn't matter if it's a game, music, comic, whatever. Like, what's the main thing? And to me, on Brawl, I think this feeling, like capturing this Saturday morning magic of like, you stop everything and you stay like 4 hours straight eating sugar and watching cartoons and just having fun. Like this magic that I don't know if kids are doing this anymore. I love that we are kind of bringing it back with Brawl in every update. I think this is fantastic. Like every Brawl talk, like we have players getting together to watch Danny, Drew, Marcio talk a bunch of shit and do crazy stuff and like delivering characters, skins, like crazy features. Like they got so hyped, so excited. And then we have like this Saturday morning cartoon magic going for like 2 months. We have like friends getting together to play Brawlers. We have fun arts. We have like crazy, insane memes on Twitter, like during the whole month, talking about that Brawler, coming up with crazy stories. It feels so alive to work in a project that you really can see the passion of your players and that you are giving something to them that is not only like a distraction, they are really being entertained, like they are really having fun with what you are creating. And for us, this is super special because we are creating with the same intention. Like we are truly having fun when we are creating stuff at Brawl. Like our meetings are fun, our discussion are crazy. Even when we don't agree, it's usually like, yeah, okay, whatever, and it's just another day. Like it doesn't feel like you're working. And I think that a little bit of this passion, it's like, it's coming across what we are delivering. And to me, this is about thinking of what do you want your players to feel. And honor your influences. Here again, talking about good feathers. And I think it's important when you're creating and you're relying on references and inspiration to honor like those places where you're drinking to get inspiration. And to me, honor your reference is not about copying. It's about, okay, I understood this idea. I want to bring a little bit of the soul of this idea, but I have to twist with my own take. I think this is super important. Otherwise, we're just copying what everybody already did. And your intention has to be very clear when you're creating something. You're paying homage to something, but there's your own take, and your own take has to be clear. And that's why this is an exercise that I like to do working with games, is that I noticed that there's a lot of games copying from games and drinking for games and gamers making games and looking into games, and everything is about games. And I'm like, God, the world is so big. We could be reading more, like checking comics, checking like weird stuff that underground stuff for real. Like there's so much more that people are creating, and this could literally, I don't know, feed your imagination to try something new. And I think it's so important when you can twist, not twist, but when you can create something for games that was completely based in something else. I think that's the preciosity like that we have as artists. Like you look into, I don't know, a forest, and then you imagine like buildings with that shape. Like you look into bugs and you imagine like characters. We are always like twisting stuff when we are creating. So to me, honor a reference is about knowing how to use them. And I think talking a little bit, I already talked about all that, but create with legacy in mind is precisely that. Like when we are creating, we are like almost letting this Bible for the next generation that will for sure inspire them in everything that they will create. And sometimes, even if they are not going to work with games or creating stuff or as artists, but this will have an impact in our players' life. Like this can make their day a bit better because they are playing with their friends, or this can inspire them to make comics because they got so passionate about the characters that they want to create stories. Or, I don't know, like this will make a true connection with their inner child in a way that they will have like 35 years old and they can like buy a El Primo costume and don't give a fuck just because they want to dress like the character. And we have that, like we are all adults and we have like this special moment with our inner child when you buy something that you loved as a child and you can like keep nurturing this child because you're connected with something that you learned to love when you were a kid or something like that. So I like to think about those three things when I'm creating. Like, this is not only for me. I think that always starts with me and my inner child. But because I'm trying to be true with myself, ended up being something that it feels true to our players in a way. And this is not only me, but this is how the whole team worked together to create something that we believe. And talking about the team, let's talk a little bit about the process of creating a brawler. Let's see if I can remember, because I have to create brawlers, a lot of brawlers, and sometimes I forgot the last one. But let's go. This is Draco. Draco, it's basically host for the Medieval Manor. Medieval Manor is an area in Star Park that is a mix of like this representation of medieval world, but twisted with heavy metal stuff. And Draco is some kind of a heavy metal singer host that uses his Flying V guitar as like this lance to jousting. But the thing is that he's dressed like he's wearing this inflatable dragon costume. So that's the thing. But because it's Brawl, and there's some magic because of the gems, this is actually a dragon in-game. So when I was creating Draco, I had a lot of my own crazy references in mind, and I always thought that heavy metal, medieval stuff is kind of cheesy. It's kind of, we did already so much stuff about that. Like, there's no way to make it look cool. And my take was, okay, we don't have to make it look cool. We can kind of mock the universe and make it cheesy, like, I don't know, Manowar and this kind of bands, but then we'll look cool because we are not taking this character serious. And that was just my crazy thinking behind. And I started with a few sketches, and we usually have like some base mechanic. For this guy was a tank, but it's really fun to see how when I share one idea with the team, they are super open to twist and to adapt the mechanics just to fit better with the brawler. And this kind of works both ways. Like sometimes the theme itself, it's more inspiring, and they can think about more like different game skills, different mechanics, different gadgets. Like even sometime in a funny conversation, oh, that will be cool, let's add that, and then we try to make it work with the devs. But it's a real like organic process, and there's a lot of excitement in that moment. Like it's never like a It's never, oh, we have to, oh, this character needs to. No, it's always, oh, that would be cool, and that would be even better, and what about this? Like this building up moment, like this is real, and it's always like magical when this happens. And once Draco was like 90, 80% ready, we have to have this brainstorm with marketing and decide, okay, this is going to be like a legendary brawler, and we want to make something really special for him. Because we have so many brawlers, it would be nice to have like a moment to appreciate this guy. And let's try to do something special, something different. And we had this brainstorm together, like me and the marketing team, together with community. And I remember that when I was sharing the references, they were already in love because metalheads and gamers, and they were like, yeah, let's do a D&D. Like, let's add him like doing some D&D moment, like he can be like a D&D master, and he tells stories, and later on he get into D&D, and he's gonna have like 3 older brothers that kind of bullied him as a child, but then he started to kind of get away from the fights with his brothers by telling them stories, and because of that, he got into D&D, and he got into heavy metal, and he's like a super confident guy when he's singing, and then we start to brainstorm ideas together with this like base bio that I have for the Brawler, and it was super fun because then we start, oh, what about like bringing something different for the players? Like maybe we can introduce this Brawler in a heavy metal magazine, or maybe we can came up with a music for this Brawler, find a band that could play or compose for that, create like a video clip. What can we do? And I remember that Danny had this idea about reaching out to Dragon Force, but we had like a super short time. It's always short time. It's like less than 2 months to create everything. And during this meeting, all we had was this slide that you guys are seeing. We didn't even have 3D models. It was like pretty wild moment to, yes, let's make a clip. So we did it anyway. And then we tried to came up with this forced task about, okay, we have to reach out the band on Twitter, see if they are available. I remember that Danny usually is the guy doing that. And they were in this, and they were in their European tour, I guess. And we were ghosted on the first meeting. We were like, the whole marketing there, waiting to have the meeting and come up with ideas. They didn't show up, and we were like, oh my God, they're not gonna make it. But then the second meeting, they were there, and we get a chance to talk with Herman Lee, and he was like such a great guy. Like we all have a second brainstorm session with him, explaining about the character, explaining about Brawl Stars, like how the Brawlers are loved by the community, how we try to approach like different themes, different subjects with every character. And he got super, super excited to be part of that. He liked the references as well, like metalheads. And it was super, super exciting when he said yes, and we had super short time to come up with lyrics. But then all the community guys, together with Herman Lee, start to compose the song. We had the idea to make this custom flying V guitar for a giveaway for the community, Draco T-shirts. We designed costumes for the actual, for the band to wear it when they they were recording the video clip. We also have like a huge task force from our environment artists to make the in-game environment into this real medieval manor environment, and it was insane. I remember that during those meetings, we had like the first pass on one of those environments. They were looking like Doom. It was super dark and full of fire. And our marketing lead said, maybe this is not for kids. And we were like, no, let's give a second pass and blah, blah, blah. But guys, those conversations, they happen like feedback sessions and everything. They happen like overnight. It's super short time. It's like literally you cannot miss one Slack message. And I miss a lot of those messages. So those guys working together, like sometimes, over the time and the weekends, they made this dream happen, and it was insane because I remember the final week we had an offsite in Korea, and we were super excited by the offsite, but also we have to release Draco campaign. Oh, I forgot to mention, we also recorded the team screaming for the song all together. We're all happy and excited, screaming Draco there. It was a very special moment. And I remember that we were in Korea 1 week before you have to launch the Draco campaign. And Danny had to fly back just to make sure we're going to have all the assets right in time and everything would work together nicely. And Herman Lee was with us on Slack, working overtime, like checking every asset, make sure that we're going to have everything. He was literally working as a producer with us, he and Danny, and it was so special when everything was in the right place, right time, and we finally got our video clip. And we got the video clip launch, I think, we were still in Korea, and the whole team was so proud. Like, we have a session playing the music in the restaurant and blah, blah, blah. It was very special. And I really believe that, again, everything that I was saying about humor, connection, using this as like our North Star when we are creating stuff together, having fun during the process, thinking about the players, like, just because of that, we managed to deliver the whole thing in less than 2 months. Like, there's no magic, but at the same time, I believe that the magic is what happens when you are creating stuff with people that you truly admire and trust and know that they are doing the best they can for the game. And I'm really happy, I'm really proud to say that on Brawl, that's what we do. Like, there's no way to find someone at Brawl right now that is not working fully committed with this team. And I'm super proud of that. And this is the results. Let's hear.
About a dragon I know, a
And that's all. Thank you, guys. Oh, it's escaping already.
Thank you, Faye. Thank you so much, Faye. That was so cool, Faye.
Yeah.
See, we get to call her Faye because we're friends. But unfortunately, we don't have any time for questions, so we just give you our big applause. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.